One of the goals of the K-12 basic education program is to develop in the learners competencies, work ethics, and values relevant to pursuing further education and or joining the world of work. To achieve greater congruence between basic education and the nation's development targets, work immersion, a required subject, has been incorporated into the curriculum. With the spread of COVID-19 pandemic worldwide, how was work immersion implemented in the Department of Education? Let's see how respondent schools from the Division of Marinduque incorporated work immersion in the senior high school curriculum during pandemic year 2020 to 2021 through this research on Phenomonological study on the flexible work immersion teaching in the Division of Marinduque.
This action research aimed to provide suggestions on how work immersion during the new normal be conducted based on the experiences and findings of teachers who pioneered work immersion practice during health crisis. Specifically, this research aimed to answer the following questions. Number 1. What are the job offerings of senior high school in the Division of Marinduque? Number 2. What are the approaches of the select schools in the implementation of work immersion during school year 2020-2021? Number 3. What are the challenges encountered by teachers in the implementation of work immersion? Number 4. What are the strengths and weaknesses of the approaches conducted by select schools in the work immersion? And last, what recommendations can be deduced from this study for the conduct of work immersion during time of health crisis?
The proponents of this study followed the input-process-output framework in order to derive the results which it viewed to gain. The input in this research is the flexible learning delivery, which are recommended and utilized by senior high schools in the Schools Division of Marinduque. Those practices and activities were gained by the researchers using a survey form, using Google Documents, and was sent through social media platforms. The expected output is a list of recommended approaches or activities which schools may choose from in order to conduct work immersion despite the ongoing health crisis.
Work immersion is a vital inclusion in the senior high school curriculum. It aims to prepare learners to work environment in case they prefer to work or join the workforce after graduation. After the analysis of the data gathered, here are the summary of our results. Number 1. Out of all the respondents, 95.2% offered the home-based approach on work immersion, while 26.8% had utilized in-school and community-based work immersion. Number 2, home-based immersion was composed of activities which exhibit the competencies and skills related to work and include the following activities: portfolio, 90.5%, culminating activity, 52.4%, creation of video presentation, 47.6%, and virtual business simulation, 19%. Respondents figured that as schools explored other ways of providing work immersion experience, these may serve as alternative for future implementation, as these practices showcase the following strengths. It secures the safety of the teachers and learners. It promotes independent learning among the work immersionists. It strengthens partnership between schools and stakeholders. And finally, it explores both learners and teachers on the use of technology and social media in order to promote business.
However, respondents have also noted the following, like setting back that this set abroad, beginning with the lack of equipment at home, having 85.7%, learners' hard time completing the activities in the absence of full support from school, teachers, and work partners, having 76.2%, and low internet connectivity in their locale, having 66.7%. For the others, we do have also other challenges involving financial support, insufficient orientation and training to teachers implementers on the setting of work immersion, and somewhat power interruption. And finally, we do have also several suggestions which were noted from the work immersion teachers. Among the top suggestions were the following. First, having uniform plan for the various approaches for the implementation of work immersion, having 81%, providing orientation to parents, teachers, having 71.4%, financial support from LGU and NGOs, having 66.7%, providing insurance for learners and teachers, having 42.9%, and also introducing online business and other possible online, having 19%, and orientation of the guidelines to teachers, having 14.3%. While for the others, we do have also finding other alternative setup of learning, like budget for communication also, vaccination for all, and providing additional equipment.
Finally, the researchers, in reference to the result of this study, recommends the following. First, senior high schools work immersion may utilize home-based approach, following activities which are both safe for learners and teachers, but also meets the required competencies and skills to be mastered and developed among the students. Second, home-based approach may include activities like portfolio assessment and other offline activities which utilize technology like creation of video of their learnings. Third, the use of technology is highly encouraged, especially for activities like online promotion of products or goods. Therefore, it is highly recommended that the school must allocate sufficient budget for internet connection. Fourth, it is also highly encouraged that the Division of Marinduque, through the Curriculum and Implementation Division, focused on senior high school work immersion, draft a uniform framework on how each approach be conducted by schools in order to ensure optimum results of this endeavor, despite the limitations set by our current setting. Fifth, recalibrate work immersion teachers to the new design of work immersion program for the better results of the program by providing them the training appropriate for this implementation. Sixth, conduct regular meeting, orientation, and consultation for parents and other key stakeholders to update them in the status of work immersion program. 7. Since this program is a shared responsibility, ask for an agreement for an alternative community immersion schedule to develop the most essential skills of work immersion students. 8. Intensify partnership and collaboration between the school and establishment in the locality where they can have a work immersion following the prescribed guidelines of DepEd and protocols of the IATF.
Based on the results, conclusion, and recommendations of the research, Phenomonological study on the flexible work immersion teaching in the Division of Marinduque, the proponents came up with the policy recommendations for the review and approval of Division of Marinduque Senior High School Work Immersion Implementation with the title Policy Recommendation on the Conduct of Work Immersion in the Senior High School Level at Time of Health Crisis. This policy recommendation aims to strengthen home-based work immersion as alternative to work immersion practices when there is health crisis.
Specifically, here are the gaps which this policy recommendation would like to address based from the results of our research. Gap 1. There is no specific and uniform guidelines on how to conduct home-based work immersion. Gap 2. Teachers lack the necessary training on the conduct of home-based work immersion during time of pandemic. Gap 3. Home-based work immersion does not guarantee the mastery and development of skills targeted by work immersion. And Gap 4. Home-based work immersion experiences problems on lack or insufficiency of equipment and materials. On the other hand, this policy suggested some strategies of implementation. In order for the objectives of this policy or recommendation be achieved, the researchers proposed these steps for implementation. First, the division office must organize specific and uniform guidelines on the conduct of home-based work immersion. In doing so, they must have first, identify from the field of experts who can join the development team. Second, review the reports on work immersion implementation and study the gaps and challenges faced from the previous work immersion experience. And third, craft a policy guidelines which could be used by the field as a reference on how to appropriately conduct the work immersion without failing to develop among the learners the competencies required for the course.
Second, provide the necessary training to teachers on how to implement the content of the policy guidelines crafted. Third, impose an exit examination on work immersion in order to evaluate the competencies and skills gained by the learners during home-based work immersion. A standardized written exam must be developed and given to the learners to assess their learning of the competencies. B. A performance task related to the expected skills to be developed must be expected and not simple culminating of outputs.
Schools must establish and strengthen the partnership with the community in order to seek assistance in the implementation of work immersion from home to community. For letter A, school and community may identify a community center for work immersion. B, division office and schools may consider putting the equipment in community centers so that learners may use them as scheduled and following health protocols. Community, through an LGU, may take responsibility on taking care of the equipment while it is in the community center. For letter C, schools may also engage trained testafolks to assist them in the community centers. And D, school and community may engage in partnership in providing the materials required for the conduct of work immersion. Donations from stakeholders may also be accepted. For the effectivity, this policy recommendation shall take effect upon the review and approval of concerned officers.
Thank you.